I'm Sarah,
And I'm Pat Luce, her mother.
and this is my mom.
I said that. We are going to be doing this video live and unedited, so hopefully we won't jump around too much, but we were asked if we would share Sarah's story on what God has done in our lives in difficult times. And so I'm going to let her tell a little bit about her story leading up to her surgery.
So my junior year of college, I started noticing some dizziness, and then my senior year of college, it was getting worse, and the end of my senior year was when COVID hit, so after spring break in early March, I never went back to Westland. I finished my college career online at home, and while I was at home, Mom and Dad started noticing some things that I still didn't. I'm sorry, I am yawning this time of day. Mom and Dad started noticing some things that I was not necessarily doing well, but it was
a little different than what
the original symptoms. So I had been working with a neurologist between my junior and senior year, like at the end of my junior year. She saw a little growth on my pituitary, but she said it was probably nothing and just got rescanned in a year. And so I did, and that's how they found the tumor. And I got rescanned in North Carolina because while I was down here visiting my best friend, it was a rainy day, and she was like, well, your pursuits of finding a job in Illinois are not turning out the way you wanted, so why don't you throw in a couple applications down here? So I did, and within like a couple of days, I had like 6 calls for interviews and stuff, and we just felt like God was opening doors for me to go to North Carolina. And so I ended up getting a job down here, and I moved down, and right away, before Mom and Dad had even left, we decided that we should get me started with a doctor because we weren't having much luck in Illinois, and time just ran out while I was up there, and it was time for me to come down here. And so I came down here and it got rescanned, and that's how they found my tumor. And then they called me at work on a Friday in August, and they said it's a tumor and it's pretty big, so you should come in right away. And so I came on the Friday, and my principal drove me, and then my best friend and her mom came, and until my parents could come, and I was hospitalized right away. And then they did the tumor resection surgery the next Monday, and then I was in ICU for 5 weeks. And then they airlifted me to Chicago because we lived very close to Chicago and Northwestern Hospital. So I was doing proton radiation. So I was in Marion Joy Rehab Hospital for probably 2 or 3 months. And then I was able to come home, and I did, how long was chemo?
Chemo started in January of 21 and went through to the beginning of September. So you had nine months of chemo.
And so they let us do it at the local hospital, even though my college team was in Chicago. And so I did a couple of rounds of therapy after that.
Physical therapy and occupational therapy and speech.
Yeah. And now we're in North Carolina again, getting ready to start PT note again. And I was diagnosed with something called posterior fossa syndrome, which is basically just how my brain reacted to the surgery. The surgery went well and everything, and the surgeon didn't do anything wrong. It's just how my brain reacted. And so I'm having to relearn how to walk and do a lot of things again. And so I'm mostly in the wheelchair. I try to practice walking like every day. It's just a process.
Just kind of backing up a little bit into some of the background she gave you. We suspected there was something wrong. And I think at one point my husband and I joked, because we had gone through so many rounds of, with COVID, it was just kind of crazy with the getting insurance to okay things and scans done. We look back now, and I think that knowing God opened the door for her to go to North Carolina, we felt very strongly that he had opened those doors pretty clearly. So despite the fact that she was clearly showing some signs of symptoms that there was something wrong, we just really felt like we needed to let her go. And which is why we set her up with doctors as fast as we could when we got down there. But I think some of that was a release for us to have to realize that, God had her, and we needed to keep looking for what was going on. Before we left her, the first neurologist that we had seen with her suspected that she might have MS. And so, we said, there's people that live with that. We will just take one step at a time and see where we go with this. So it was really hard to release her, as it is for any child, and then to have them go 900 miles away. We knew she had a good support system down here with friends, and she also had an amazing school that she was working for, and I don't think we realized at the time how amazing they were. They stepped in and just took care of us. Obviously, our life imploded as soon as we found out she had a tumor. And we had, they brought us meals at the hospital, or at the hotel that we were living at across the street. Her apartment was too far from the major hotel she had, or hospital that she had surgery in. So these people took up donations. They brought us meal cards. They brought us meals in the hospital lobby, hotel lobby. They had, because she was a new teacher, they donated their sick days, and she stayed employed and insured through the entire time. And then when we finally, it was obvious that there was more going on than just recovering from surgery. She and I both resigned from our teaching positions in December of 2020. And that was, we were able to keep her COBRA insurance for a little bit until we got her on ours again. But it was such a blessing to have that insurance and not be worrying about that. And then to turn around, we've just now realized that gave her, fast forward couple years, we are now trying to do Social Security disability for her. And she was a little bit shy of the 6 credits needed. It's a long story, but at her age and the disability of the age of the disability, she needed 6 work credits and quarters, I guess, and she had 5. And so we look back now, and probably 90% of that came from the fact that she was still working because they donated sick days. So, I mean, it's easier now in hindsight to look back and see where God had his hand all along. Some of the biggest things I think I remember, sorry, we got sunlight coming in, is just the feeling of just kind of utter helplessness, and then realizing that God would orchestrate people to be in your life at whatever point, just when you needed it. And I think if my husband were here, he would also tell you that his probably most meaningful time was we would take turns at the hospital because of COVID. They only allowed one of us in at a time. And he ran into a man who was going through a very significant loss, and his wife was in the ICU. And my husband is not an out there in your face kind of guy, but he was able to offer help to this man who didn't know where he was going. He was crying, and my husband was able to pray with him, and they just developed a very sweet bond in Jesus that, we still can't explain to this day. And now that we're back down here, we would love to connect with him. You want to tell him about what the connection you have made down here with a lady?
I've never met this lady. I think she is friends with the school secretary of the school that I worked at. But she's a good Christian lady, and she writes me like every week. And like I said, I've never met her. And
that's in our list of things to do soon.
Yeah.
Is to go back down there and meet her in person.
Yeah. And so she writes me every week, and occasionally I will write her back. And each of our cards is like a little sermon. She'll be like cleaning the pollen off her yard furniture, and she's had Jesus in it, and she just wanted to tell me about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been very helpful, and there've been a few times that she's written and said exactly what I needed to hear that week. Like I was really upset about something, and she would just say the perfect thing, so it's very clear that God had something on her heart that she wanted to share, and it was just what I needed to hear.
I think we were looking through what you've been studying, and I think one of the things that was really hard is just letting go. One, recognizing that we were grieving a loss of our plans. Not only had Sarah hoped to start teaching and was very excited about doing kindergarten, teaching kindergarten, even with Zoom. So that would have been how she started, or she did start. But Randy, my husband, and I had started making plans to retire. And in fact, he is in his final 2 months and therefore is not with us today. He is up still in Chicago. But we had been looking at campers and had this plan of downsizing and moving to maybe traveling in the winters with a camper, an RV. And it became pretty evident. And sometimes I look back, it wasn't immediate. I don't know if it's because we had to grieve through the losses or because nobody really gave us the full story, or it was just kind of, it's been an evolutionary process to see where she goes and how her health has come back. But we had to let go of those ideas of what we thought was going to happen with our lives. Sarah in her teaching career and us in our retirement. But I think as we learned to we could look back on what God had done for us faithfully, we were able to then be a little more hopeful in the fact that, He's had us all along. Sometimes we saw it in hindsight. So we knew that there was a plan, and we just had to be willing to trust Him. And I think everybody comes at that at a different stage. I think sometimes you waffle back and forth with whether, you're in that stage. One of us will be hopeful and the other one's not. And then we just kind of switch, is what my husband and I found early on. But I think one of the things that has gotten us through is one, because we could look back and see how faithful He's been. And then also we do a lot of music has been huge for us to just listen to. It seemed like the right songs would come on at the right time when we needed them. We laugh about everything. We try. We make fun of things. You want to tell them our little phrase? Pardon the French. This is how raw we can get sometimes when you're in the middle of a trial. But
we say this is a marathon that we did not sign up for, so we can sit on the road and cry, and then we could get up and run like hell.
Yes, there are stages that we have realized that we're all going to go through, and thankfully I think we've all gone through them at different times. Just the reimagining of what our lives are going to look like. One of the things that once my husband and I started, as we were working with a counselor, and she said, you guys need to redream what things are going to look like. And when we started looking at, okay, we're in a 2-story home, that's not going to work for her right now. She's getting better, but it's killing her independence. She needs some place where she can navigate more freely in whatever she can get to. Right now it's a walker, a specialized walker, or a wheelchair. And so when we started looking at that, we thought, well, we were going to sell our house anyway and downsize, probably moving out of the state of Illinois. We wanted to move a little, we didn't know yet where we wanted to go. But I think God bringing us down here to North Carolina gave us, I think He just gave us a heart for this state. I think it opened our eyes to, if Sarah was originally so eager to get down here, maybe we need to check this out. It would be easier. We did a couple winters with equipment, and it's certainly going to be easier with less snow. But we decided if we were going to sell anyway, we need to get out of this house. And so why buy something again in Illinois? We need to just make the leap and decide. And so we started looking about a year ago in North Carolina. we did some research and knew that the Raleigh-Durham area was really heavily saturated with good medical, because this is going to be an ongoing thing for her on top of her cerebellar surgery, which did issues with her balance, with her speech, with her fine motor. She had a ventricular peritoneal, a VP shunt, which drains the cerebral spinal fluid out of her head. She gets hydrocephalus if it does not work. And unfortunately, you have endured how many? 7 shunt surgeries. For some people, they work great. They never cause a problem. For some people, not so much. And she seems to be a not so much person, at least for now. We're going to knock on wood that that's not happening anymore. But we just decided we needed to be near good medical. And so we started looking in spring break of last year, thinking it was going to take us a long time to find a home that not only we could afford, that had the space for her, that there were a lot of things on our checklist. And including that, we brought my mother with us, and she wanted a separate space. And so we started looking, working with a realtor, and by the end of April, about a month later, we found this home that we're in now. And it was in the crazy market season, and we basically put an offer on the house. Obviously, we offered a little higher because that was what was happening at that time, and we bought it on Zoom. Our realtor was wonderful. Even her, Regina, was an answer to prayer as far as somebody that knew how to navigate. She has a family member in a wheelchair. So going around with her, she learned very quickly what we needed, what we didn't. And she and her husband came in, just wonderful people, and measured for us, did the Zoom for us. We offered and had no counter offers with anybody. Nobody else offered, and we basically owned a home down here within a few hours of putting an offer in, while her younger son graduated from college.
My younger brother.
Oh yeah, my younger
son.
Her younger brother. So, just God just stepped in. The realtor, my brother, took over negotiations while we were literally in the ceremony. We walked out and we had a house. And it has been a 9-month process of getting us all down here. Dad's the last missing piece for the last 2 months, but we moved last summer, and it has been still things to work on. We have a shower that needs some renovation for her to be fully independent, but being able to see where God has brought her from the 5 weeks in ICU, where she developed what's called the posterior fossa syndrome. She developed, it's also, there is a component of that is mutism. And she couldn't speak for 4 weeks. And so to see her go from the fear that we would never hear her voice again to what she's doing now, it's just amazing. And when you look at the fact that she could hardly hold herself upright, and she has progressively moved little pieces of equipment off and to the point where we're now in a new configuration of her special walker, and she's got goals to walk with what we affectionately call a grandma walker. It's a traditional walker that you see most people using when they need some stability. So I think a lot of it was us releasing our expectations of what we thought our lives were going to look like, and looking at what God had planned for us. One of the things that I found helpful, and I still try to do, although I'm not so good about it because we just get very busy with all your appointments and things, is just trying to keep like a gratitude journal. And I just got to the point where I bullet pointed a couple things on every day of the month. But being able to look back and see where God had his hand. I mean, we questioned immediately why God would give her a job, why we'd move her all the way down here. And she would turn around 3 weeks later and be hospitalized down here, when we ended up having to bring her back to Chicago. And now we can look back and see some of the reasons why. I mean, not only did it put North Carolina on our radar, but it gave us some amazing people that we've met along the way, that have just been a blessing to us. And I think, it gave her the ability to then have work credit for Social Security that I don't know that would have happened if she'd been with us up in North. If we had said, you can't go, we're not comfortable with this. I think my husband and I really realized early on that God had a plan for her, and we had to release her. And that was hard. And I kind of sensed early on, even in the journey of the tumor, just that God was going to be doing something through this, and we couldn't see what, but we had to just trust him. Anything else that you can think of that we wanted to share?
This has been a long video, so kudos you for sticking with it.
Yeah.
It's been a long journey for us.
Yeah, it has. You think you're going to go into a surgery and things are going to come out the way you want, and you'll just go on with life. And we've had to learn very quickly that God had a different plan. But I think the blessing, just being able to speak to you, is one of the blessings I think that we've found along the way of just being able to share our journey. The people who have come to us later and said, this just was huge. I had a friend just share with me that she was going through a very severe issue in her family, unbeknownst to many of us until later. And she said, those times you were going through and being able to read how you guys were navigating that really gave me hope that we were going to get to the other side of what they were dealing with. And God has been faithful in their journey. And I encouraged her to be sure and share that with somebody else, because you just never know. We had no idea when we started her Caring Bridge how it was going to touch people, and that we were going to end up with people that we don't even know following us, and just crazy interactions that we've had with people that were pure strangers who have sought us out, and we've been able to connect with in various. We had dinner with a lady and her husband who had seen my husband's post about her surgery on the fan page. They're both Cincinnati Reds fans, and they lived near us and took us out to dinner near at the hospital when she was in surgery. I mean, those are the kinds of God connections that you cannot orchestrate, and those are the things that have made us, cling to him when we're trying to figure out why. So she is now, if you want to update them a little bit on what your plan has become now.
25. I have been making cards, and I'm hoping to branch out to other products. I have my trusty Cricut that helps me make cards and everything. And so I've been doing that.
A little bit of occupational therapy. We felt early on, that was one of your goals as a teacher, was to save enough money to get a Cricut, an upgraded Cricut. She had a very old one that she had gotten on sale from someone, garage sale type thing. And so the first Christmas was not going to work. It would have been too frustrating. But by the time she did physical therapy and occupational therapy, my husband and I felt like the next Christmas was a really good forward thing for her, because that's the whole goal of occupational therapy, is to give you the ability to do the things you loved. And she had lost so much in her ability to do crafty things that she loved, that we just all found that you have to do things that bring you joy along the way. And that was a big part, we hoped, of one, making her feel more normal in her journey, and also giving her, there's always a hidden motive, right? Some occupational therapy And it was a fun way for her to, you're motivated. If you want to do it, you're motivated to pick things up by yourself. And I think that was very frustrating for you in the beginning. There were some tears. But as she set little goals and kept working, she now does it, 99% independently. And so those are huge milestones to look at and be thankful for, that we've seen. Sometimes it's just being creative in your space of what you can do or not do. And we had to think outside the box of how you were what things were gonna look like. So, anything else that you want to share?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. I think that's kind of our journey. That's kind of where we were at. It has not always been easy. There have been a lot of tears. We tried to relay that on our Karen Bridge site because I didn't want people thinking everything was always good. But I think it is a grieving process as you adjust to what God had planned for your life and what you thought it was going to look like. I'm not sure about you, but I can just look back and think there are many more times of joy that we've had. Not always happiness. There's a difference between happiness and joy. Happiness is just that everything's going well. Joy is more just the deep knowledge that God's got you no matter what, even when it's not what you would have wanted to do. And I think I've experienced more joy having to release some of the things that we thought. I don't know how you would say that or not. You're the one battling through
this. Definitely been there been difficulties, but I think that the benefits outweigh the difficulties.
Yeah. So hopefully this has been encouraging to you all as you're going through something, or maybe going through something down the road. We obviously never thought this is what we were gonna be dealing with. I think we morbidly joked when my husband and I were like, they cannot figure out what's wrong with her after all these tests. I mean, what if it's a brain tumor? And it was. But we have to look back on the fact that God never gave us guarantees that we would live our full entire life, what we would see as a full entire life, 80s, 90s, happy, healthy. And so the fact of what she came from and the fact that she survived brain surgery and then has come back from all these things is just a blessing right there that she's still with us. And so on the hardest days, I always had to go back to, but she's here. Not that heaven is a bad place to be, but we are not having to navigate life without her. And so trying to keep the positive, I think that's probably been the biggest thing we've tried to work through. Thus our motto of just picking ourselves up and running again. But everybody needs a cry day once in a while, and that's okay. So get to take care of yourself. Sometimes we just have to pamper ourselves and take a break. But we hope this has been helpful, and we hope that you will find joy in your journey as well. Ready to say goodbye?
Yeah, bye.
Bye. Thanks for letting us share.